Tatawa, Tansei, Justin Nitsi Kasun. Welcome everyone to a discussion about Indigenous issues in Canada presented by the Elmwood Community Resource Centre and hosted by myself, Justin Woodcock, and my honored guest, Vern Dano. Vern Dano is a non-status Anishinaabe elder, knowledge keeper, pipe carrier, lodge keeper, Sundance keeper, singer, and is currently the owner of Vern Dano Indigenous Therapeutic Services. It's a land-based approach that is focused in and around Manitoba, delivering relevant experience, information, and practices to Indigenous and non-Indigenous populations. He is a loving son, father, grandfather, husband, friend, and most of all, a grandchild of Creator's teaching. Vern believes when we truly use the 7 values together, no one is left behind, and we're very honored to have him here. Thank you for joining us tonight, Vern.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. So
I'm noticing it.
Go ahead.
I'm noticing having a big reflection off my glasses here, so I think I'll go without. There we go.
As long as you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tonight we're just going to have a little discussion about 3 different topics. We're going to start off about Indigenous parenthood and how to instill our culture and identity in our children. We're also going to talk about how to support female Indigenous leadership and those strong matriarchal voices in our spaces. And lastly, we're going to talk about, it is Pride Month, it's June, it's Indigenous History Month, but it's also Pride Month. And we'd like to talk about Pride Month from an Indigenous perspective. So without further ado, I think we'll start the discussion.
Awesome.
I think the reason why I wanted to pick Indigenous parenthood is just it's something I'm going to be an expectant father, and it's something that I've been really concerned about is how I can pass on those teachings and instill that cultural identity in my own children when it wasn't necessarily passed on as strongly to me. I think that's something that is a common theme with a lot of Indigenous parents right now.
Yeah. Well, that's a great place to open up our discussion. And I will apologize ahead of time that I am in a rural setting, so sometimes I may freeze, and Justin, just give me or something like that where I'll retract. And so for me, parenting is known as a great honor for us as people just wanting to take care of a gift that was given to us by Creator, which is a child. And it could be a boy or a girl, or as the child grows, maybe non-binary. And we'll get into that later in the presentation. But at this moment, what is most important is values. Values, and what values are you instilling into your child at those first stages, like that first 7 years? And some of our cultures in Treaty 1 territory, 0 to 7 is called concrete thinking, and that's where a child is very literal to their thought processing. So abstract thought hasn't come in, and that's the time we would call them in some of our culture Windigo cons. They do everything backwards. They put their shoes on backwards. They'll be putting their gloves on the other side, their shirts upside down, and they do all kind of fun and hilarious stuff. And that's the place where we have to let our kids just play. We have to let them explore. Let them wear whatever clothes they want for a little while. Sneak in there and wash them later. But with our children, that first 7 years is primal. We know in Western philosophies that the brain reboots every 7 years. So for our culture, with the Cree, with the Ojibwe, we knew that first 7 years was crucial. What was crucial about it was that, first off, we knew that our children were like young adults. We didn't go gaga goo goo with them. What we did was we talked quantum physics. We talked about anything from hunting techniques or sewing or cooking or whatever it was. We let the child absorb in everything, not at a stage, well, you're not ready for this. So it was very, very crucial as a parent to not enable the child, but to support, advocate, guide, and everyone in the community at one time was very connected. Nowadays, and as you mentioned earlier, our communities are fragmented and defragmented. And so you might be an Indigenous person, but you may be far removed in regards to a sweat lodge, or knowing your culture, being a pipe carrier, or knowing songs and all these different legends and stories that make up who we are, our perspective and our perspectives in the universe. And so what we know now is that knowledge is within our bones, it's within us. And so we can tap into it even at a later date. But if we can tap into it at an earlier date, what you're doing is you're teaching that child resilience. You're teaching them to know who they are and what they want to grow within themselves, what makes them curious, what makes them interested in something that will further their community, but also further themselves. It was about developing a child to be the best that they can be. Yeah, there was healthy competition, but also it was about how can this person with unique skills, we can all celebrate those skills together. So say, Justin, you're a better runner and I'm running with you as kids. We don't go and try to trip you because you're the winner all the time. No, we go, wow, I want to run as fast as Justin. That was the spirit of working together. And that's what we try to do with team building, never mind. And so nowadays we got this first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and whatever place, right? So it makes it dog eat dog kind of world. But it doesn't mean that yeah, go ahead.
Something that I thought was an interesting juxtaposition that you said there, Vern, was how, it's really important in Indigenous culture to really foster that freedom and that independence in our children from a young age. It allows them to, experiment and, try different things and find out who they are and gain some sense of autonomy. I think that you kind of see that juxtaposition in Western cultures a little bit. We see a little bit more hand-holding. We see a little bit more of like the helicopter parenting and things like that. So I really appreciate you bringing that in and reminding us how we really need to let our children live and be kids.
And building off that, we can also go the other way where we let our kids go too far. And that's the other piece too. Like we always say, if the child's not within arm reach, they're too far already. Like if you were swimming along the Red River, right on the shore, as the child fall in the water, that's it. You can't find it. It's just murky. So we know for a fact that there was also safety protocols in place. So we would have legends and stories that would keep kids away from the water. Not only like if you watch the African shows about the crocodile coming up, we also had like mountain lions. We also had other predators around water. It's a place to drink, right? So we knew we would have stories. And that's what I tell all parents that are coming, start researching our information that we are writing as Indigenous people. So I can challenge you right now, Justin, write a book. What is it, your journey, what you're experiencing in this day and age? Look at all your values. What are your values? Where did you get your values from? And how are you going to instill them into your child? Is there two sets of value in your home? Or are you similar values? And that's what happens with families is nowadays, our families have different values. And so when they come in, can they correlate? Can they connect? Or do they actually start pushing away more? And so it's like magnets. And so that's the piece you have to examine. And I tell all families, especially with cross-cultural families, like Indigenous people, like our people are very explorative. When they find love, they find it in other with other tribes and other people. And that's just how we go. However, it's the values that we have to see that are flexible, like a willow. I don't have a willow with me here, but I got sweetgrass. So say this is one, if this was just one stick, it would just break right away. But because there's many strands in here, I can't rip this apart, by the way. Even if I tried, I would have a hard time to rip this apart. I don't think I could do it. But it's us with that flexibility of your spine. This represents your values, your spine. And so how far back can you bend for your kids, for your parents, for your family, for your connections? Your values are not something that you just throw away when something difficult comes. It's how do you adapt with fluidity, with movement, with motion, with wind, with air, with snow. And so our values are like a storm. So here's a willow in a great storm. That willow is just going to go like this, but it will survive. It's still itself, and it has a few scars, few branches come off, whatnot. But if you get a huge tree that's inflexible in its values, it breaks in the big storms. You'll see trees fall right over. So we always make our ceremonies out of willows because we know there's the teepee poles and all that. They last way longer because there's a movement. There's room to grow always. You always have to have that room to always adapt. And so being a parent nowadays, you have to compete with contemporary values. However, our values never really change. They're still here today. When I share stories, I'll talk about, like, say, Thor and the Hulk and all these new people, and I look at their values and I explore them with our values. Like, say, the bison for us represents respect.
That's right.
Well, you're not going to go, when I go and talk to like some young tough guy, I say, are you going to go and punch the Hulk? No. Why? Well, I got to respect him. He's bigger and tougher and he'll smash me, right? So I try to find ways to bring these cool young people back to our time. Back then, it's still the same.
I really like
for
that.
me, telling old stories, you could only catch.
Sorry, Vern, I think we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty there. I'll just give you a second to get your signal back, because there was something actually I wanted to touch on that you said that I thought was really important. And you really stressed the importance of values. And I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people talk about, but maybe don't have a concrete idea of what their values actually are. You know, we all talk about respecting each other and treating someone how you want to be treated. But I think maybe having that list of values, a concrete list, and really reflecting on that and doing that self-inventory. You know, we talk about the 7 sacred grandfather teachings. And I think if we really look at that and incorporate that, I think it's really powerful, because trying to navigate this life without values, it's almost like being a ship in the ocean without a sail. You're just kind of lost and you don't have any direction. So I really agree with the importance of having those values and instilling them and living by them, and being the same person in all your spaces, as difficult as that can be sometimes. Well, I can't hear you, Vern. I'm not sure. You're not muted, but nothing's coming through for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't say you're muted, but yeah, no audio is going through. I'm not sure. Oh, I think I heard a little bit there. No, no. Hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yep, I got you.
Okay, I just turned this off because
Okay.
something's happening. It's kicking off somewhere.
Yep.
So just to retract a little bit, we can do all our ceremonies, we could do all our protocols, we could do all our culture, all our language, but if we don't use our culture, our values, then what are you teaching your home fire? So for me, it's easy to toss it out the window. I want more power. I want a better job. I want to be this or that. Well, start forgetting about my kids, stuff like that. Or I put my values and I balance out my life, my physical, my cognitive, my emotional, and my spiritual self. And spiritual doesn't have to be a sweat lodge. You can take your children to go swim in a nice creek or a river. So like all the stuff when we talk about it, people think it's at the Sundance or a vision quest or a pipe ceremony. Spirituality is connecting where you see your child running on through a field and you're laughing with joy because you see your child having such a good time. So parenting can happen anywhere, any place, anytime, but it's how you're carrying your energy. And are
Absolutely.
you truly liking yourself as a parent? And do you truly love yourself as a parent? Where you have enough energy to pass it on to your child and role model that? And
Uh,
so, and let children get older. But as a parent, we're still guardians. We still have to watch over them. And we still have to like give them constructive feedback and say, look, it's up to you, but I'm just letting you know what I went through.
mhm.
You know, it wasn't easy.
Absolutely.
It's your choice. That's kind of what we used to do. But everyone was an auntie and an uncle back then. Everyone was a grandma and grandpa. Like the community held you responsible for your behaviors. We don't have that nowadays. And if you do, people will call the cops or CFS on you for calling your
Yeah.
child on their behavior. So it's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. So
Something else, you brought in a good
I
part there, Vern, if I can use that as a segue. Something else that's really changed a lot, I think, and is reflective in our communities as well, is just really strengthening and honoring our women in our communities, and honoring their positions in our communities, and the amount of leadership and power that they bring. I think that's something that is, we're seeing a resurgence now. I feel like it, but that's something I also wanted to talk to you about, was how can we foster those female Indigenous voices in our community, and help those female Indigenous leaders, because talking about parenting, I just recently found out last weekend that I'm going to have a son. I'm excited, but I'm also,
congratulations.
thank you. I'm excited, but I'm also concerned that I want him to be a good man, and I want him to be a man that helps bring up the women around him and can follow women and take their leadership. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about that as well tonight.
Well, that's interesting. That's an interesting topic that we're segueing into because, you know, our women are just as involved as us men in this patriarchal system that we have to work through, navigate through. There's some literature called two eye seeing, where you're from your culture, but you got to work in a dominant society. So there's a lot of stuff like that, where how do you have to work and be flexible within a patriarchal system? And so for me as a male, I'm already privy to a little bit more accessibility being a male. However, being Indigenous, I lose stuff too again, because a lot of the stuff that we do is not considered recognized. It's just oral, or it's more tribal or animalism, whatever way you want to put it. But if we go back to the building blocks of our communities prior to pre-contact, our women usually in most societies were well balanced. Yeah, there was difficulties and challenges in all societies. Try living in a house full of people, there's always going to be conflict over something. But our women had a straight back, clear voice, clear eyes, and they spoke not with arrogance or ignorance or cold-hearted. They were based out of a place of a kind heart. And so we knew that our women were life givers. We knew that they were given the gift to be able to carry a child for a certain period of time. So us men, we had to, well, what do? Well, we do ceremonies, and the past during colonialism, they started to push the women away because they couldn't be part of the treaties and all that we all me and you, we know this stuff.
Mhm.
However, the point I'm getting at is that our women had to go into Western education areas to now take the jobs over, to be able to rectify all the messes that us guys have done. And I'm not going to throw away all the good work that's been done by us men, but we also have to remember that our women are now going to patriarchal systems to learn that education, so they're getting influenced by it.
Mhm.
But some of them still have their language, some of them still have their culture, but I always question our leaders in a good way. How matriarchal are you?
Mhm.
And so for me, I'm a matriarchal ally because obviously I'm a male. I'm not non-binary, but I'm non-binary ally and a safe person to come to. But I do know that our women have a lot to go through.
Mhm.
It's incredible, the strength and resilience and compassion that they have to push into the positions they have. But what did they sacrifice to? Because you got to remember, when you get a CEO job or ED job, it's usually in a patriarchal system. So they had to give up something. Sometimes it was giving up harmony. And so that disharmony within women can get strong, where the lateral violence grows too. So that's the piece, that when we start doing our feast and we start doing our giveaways and we start sharing stories, and when each ED and leader or director or whatever the name of the program or wherever they're at, when they start sharing their story in sharing circles and they share their life, they don't look at it from a place of, well, I got to protect myself. No, you're a woman, you're a life giver. Even if you can't have a child, you're still a life giver,
Very sacred.
and you're sacred. And so for me, I always say that that woman came through a lot, but a lot of times there's so much lateral violence that it's hard for our women to celebrate among themselves because of the patriarchal system,
Mhm.
because it teaches distrust rather than trust. But if you bring leaders into a circle and you get them sharing, hey, share your life story, pretty much everyone's going to relate. Every woman there is going to relate to that woman that, well, I've been sexually abused, I've been sexually harassed or whatnot. And all these leaders, they had to like defend themselves in certain ways, or made decisions that weren't the greatest,
Mhm.
but they had to do things to get to where they had to be.
Mhm.
And so when I share all this, our women, it's proven in society, even in Western populations, when we have more women in leadership, the social stressors become less. They take care of crap. They take care of business. They
Absolutely.
do. And so for us as men, why be threatened by a strong woman? Why?
Mhm.
Why not we compliment them?
Mhm.
It's not about bending knee, bending back, losing your pants, and all those crazy things. It's about seeing, hold high this child that now is a leader. Why
Absolutely.
can't we do that with our women? And so for me, when I see strong women, I don't care if they're aggressive. I don't care if they're passive or passive aggressive. They worked hard to get to where they are. And I take a step back. If I have a trigger, I go, oh, this reminds me of maybe this person or that person. And then I take that away, and then I see them, they're doing great work. Or I could look at them, oh, they said this to that person, or they did that to that. No, that's lateral violence.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
have to just we don't know the whole story to where our leaders are today.
Absolutely. I
Well,
think that's a
and
great
the thing,
point, Vern. I was just wanted to say something there.
yeah,
Um, I just think, yeah, I know, speaking from my own lived experience, I've always been surrounded by powerful women. I was raised by a single mom, and just seeing her trials and tribulations and how she overcame, a lot of the struggles that she had when she left the reserve, and how she overcame them, and she does have to carry a lot of that stuff now, and she does have to overcome a lot more than others wouldn't. So she's a big inspiration to me and someone I really look up to, and she's the reason why I'm here. So I just really want
yeah,
to continue to foster those kind of voices, because I know if she had more support, maybe her journey wouldn't have been filled with so much struggle. And, if I can do something like that for the next generation and help the next generation, I think that's really important.
Well, just thinking about a single mom in daycare. If, say, I know one woman, she had 4 kids. She had 3 daycares before work on a bus. That's before getting to work and then picking up 3 kids, well, 3 daycares for kids after, and then coming home, supper, uh, getting the kids ready, lunch, whatever it takes, and then trying to work up the ladder in the job. So they don't even have the right supports by our governments. They don't even have the right supports by anything, by any means. And then we say, oh, they want more now. No, they want equality and
Absolutely.
equity. And so for me, our single parents are the unsung heroes. They're the ones that got to go across town for a bus to drop off their child, and they don't even know if their child's safe there. And they still got to work, and like maybe one of the kids is sick. Now we got COVID-19, like so it goes on and on. And
Absolutely.
so but our women are way stronger than us. I always say that. I always say that. However, as men, what we can do is hold them high is by not trying to fix them, but listen to them, to be a support when they need our help. Okay, yeah, where do you need me to help you? What can I do to be a support? Whenever you need me, come get me. And no strings attached. Because when we help these women, you should see the ripple effect. We don't even know the effects and how long the ripple effect would be to help. This one woman, she helped me, a single parent. I won't say which program or whatnot, but it's a very known program. Her helping me, because I was a single parent with 3 kids, she helped me, and she was a parent with 2 kids in a program that supported me in finances with a program. She didn't support me, but the program did, and she supported me enough to continue the programming. And later on, I went and got I went into BSW later on. Like I actually went into post-secondary. I never thought I would. And I was a single parent in a position who understood what I was going through. So that's when you talk about, celebrating, I always, this one person, I'll say her first name, Aileen, that she was a great, she doesn't realize how much she helped me, because you don't know it. You just think you kind of help someone. And I needed that. I needed a healthy woman in a position where I wasn't doing well, to see that there's good women too, as a male, to speak in as a male. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah,
I
and
also think,
so if we,
sorry, I was just going to
oh, no,
say, yeah, I think it's important that we recognize the strength in those other voices, in those diverse voices. And I think that
yeah,
kind of relates to this month as well. It's Indigenous History Month, but it's also Pride Month. And I think it's important
yeah.
that we also recognize those Two-Spirit voices as well. I think Pride has a lot to do with Indigenous framework and Indigenous perspectives as well in regards to Two-Spirit people. I was hoping you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, first off, I always apologize for the acronym. Like it's just grown so far and so long, like I can't even go there. But I do want to say, under the spectrum and under the umbrella of the beautiful rainbow colors, every one of those people that are non-binary are beautiful. They're
Absolutely.
gifted. They belong in our societies. And I'm not one against religions, but I do know if there's belief systems that oppress certain people, I do have a thorn, I do have a bone to pick, because don't, like when we say Mother Earth says everything grows, lets everything grow. That's humility. Everything grows. So then why does certain religions hold back certain like taboos or beliefs or that? And so for me, with the indigenous populations, and I can only speak to indigenous populations because I'm not educated in other continents and stuff like that, but what I know here prior to contact are all of us in our language, we never put much emphasis on male or masculinity and being that I can't say the other one, feminine. It was more about your energy in your that was housed in your body, and is that fire inside lit well?
Mhm.
May it be non-binary, male or female, it didn't matter. What we worried more about was, were you balanced with inside yourself? Were you happy? Were you challenging yourself to do better things? Are you depressed? Are you angry? What is it? And so it's not about, well, those people are the best people. No, we're all special. We're all equal. But we had to understand that some people will feel male one day and then female the next day or in the same day. And
Mhm.
that's okay. There was nothing wrong with that. They didn't need a pill. They didn't need to go to a doctor. They were just, oh yeah, that's just what's his name? That's just what's her name. That's all. They're just dressing like that today and tomorrow. But now we're in a culture where it's blue and pink, right? And
Mhm.
like blue for boys and pink for girls. But I heard in the Dakota Nation that pink is a color of earth. So it's not even there's not a feminine energy. It's just life-giving. So so if we start researching our information, start looking to our history by our elders and our academians and our people, because history is written by those that won, right?
Mhm.
And so, what about your story? What about
Mhm.
my story? Contemporary stories still tie in to historic stories because there's still that lineage of us.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of times, our two-spirited individuals they have a lot of shame. They have a lot of guilt because they're so ostracized. There's so much prejudice. There's so much racism towards them. I don't know what the proper terminology would be, but just plain old oppression.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's a lot of suicide that comes with that. And I say, if you're a person that's struggling out there with your identity, don't. With your sexuality, don't. Be okay with you, and whoever doesn't accept you, that's their loss. You be you. And
Absolutely.
whatever it is, you figure that out, but don't let belief systems oppress you. You have to live through your life from beginning to end. No one else does. Everyone's going to tell you a point like that, but in the end, it's you that has to decide if you want to wear high heels or flat shoes or long hair or short hair. You just be you. And so I always encourage our people that I've been constant one person that's about 50 plus years old that just came out of the closet because their community is so Christianized,
Mhm.
and the person wasn't doing well health wise because you internalize it, you become physically ill, you can get cancers, just it just goes on and on. Stress, hypertension, heart attacks, it just goes on and on. So the younger you are, if we can support them and proper information, pride. I think pride, when we have our pride parade, it'll be even better and better, you know.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I agree. I think that's some really important things that you were talking about there, especially, when we're talking about just being yourself and honoring your true self and disregarding those that won't honor your true self. I think that goes not only for those under the 2S LGBTQ
yeah,
banner, but also for Indigenous people. And you know what I mean? There's intersectionalities there. Both
yeah.
groups are facing severe oppression in regards to their identity. So I think that's a really it really ties in together there. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Vern. And
Well, just that one part with Two Spirited, it actually was coined here in Winnipeg. When they had a conference way back, they had to come up with something, and they just decided to come up with Two Spirited because they had to move forward after this conference. And I can't put the date or time and place, but it was coined here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it traveled around the world. And but what they decided at that time, that would, because they were fighting Western um, perspectives in academia and ideologies and religions. So the only way they can counter it through Indigenous without the data and whatnot, but just through oral, they said, well, we'll go with Two-Spirited. So they couldn't rip it apart. In my
mhm,
own words, that's my processing of it. However, always, as Indigenous people, we always have to justify a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what's said, it's what they don't say, that we can't say, well, yeah, you're prejudiced against me or you're oppressive to me, because they're not being honest with the Sabbath Sasquatch teachings. They can't just say, yeah, I really don't like you because you're Indigenous and you're gay,
Mm-hmm.
because they're scared they're going to lose their job, but everything they do is hidden behind. And that's where I have a problem, when our people and of other races don't practice their values.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah.
No, I totally agree with you, Vern. And yeah, I just want to thank you so much, Vern. I'm very grateful for your wise words that you shared with us this evening, the knowledge that you've gifted all of us. I really look forward to possibly having more of these discussions with you and exploring other topics and how we can continue to decolonize and reclaim our culture. Is
Sure,
there anything?
I'd just like to say, Justin, it's been a pleasure. I don't know how old you are, but you give me hope. As a young man, I could feel your energy that you're going to do a lot of great work in our communities, because there's no shortage of it. And the more relevant information is provided, the smaller the assumptions become. And so I'm a person that believes in building bridges, but we can only do it for so long. We need you to be the next person to start taking all these roles on, the wraparound of it all, and not be, well, I don't really know. Well, I want you to know. I want you to know that you have all of this and you're going to be the next person for your child. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it goes. Because we just lost a few elders. Jules LaValle from Red River Community College, he's gone. Ken Kershane from Seguin, he's gone. So, like, people are going. So
Well, that's why I
we need
really
you guys to
appreciate
step
you
up
sharing
and
your
help
knowledge
us
as
out.
well. It's also,
Yeah,
it's not only, yes, it's
take it,
not only
use
the
it.
next generation, but it's also the knowledge keepers like yourself who are really taking the time to share your teachings and to share your knowledge with us. And I'm so grateful for that, because yes,
Yeah.
I do want to instill this in my child and I do want to be that voice for the next generation. But I am, it's people like you that are sharing that knowledge with us that will facilitate that. So I just want to say thank you so much, Vern, for spending your time with us this evening.
Until the next time, we say Giwab Min Minawan and Gutch. I will see you again. No goodbyes.
I'll say in Cree, Ekosi, which means this is the way.
Awesome.